There's a good reason why deserts are often called seas of sand. Maybe that phrase isn't just a tired old metaphor. Maybe it reflects a hidden human desire to turn lifeless dunes into a living, roaring sea. And when you suddenly spot a stretch of water teeming with real fish right in the middle of a desert, the idea starts to feel surprisingly real. For now, it's just a relatively small reservoir. But if countries like Israel and China keep developing their deserts at this pace, there's a real chance those sandy wastelands could become actual seas within the next 50 to 100 years. Hey there, everyone! Our planet is home to billions of people, but the amount of land that's actually livable or usable for growing food is shockingly small. So, what can we do about it? China and Israel couldn't be more different in terms of land size and population. But they share one thing in common. Much of their territory is desert, and neither of them is willing to settle for that status quo. Welcome to our channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. Hit that button and stay connected with us. Alright, let's dive in. China's Desert Fish Project. It turns out that the Chinese aren't even afraid to take on one of the most vast and lifeless deserts on Earth, the Taklamakan Desert in Xinjiang. This desert has a fearsome reputation. It's the second largest sand desert in the world, and it holds the grim record for the most caravan deaths anywhere on the planet. Its name says it all. In ancient Uyghur, Taklamakan means "go in and you won't come out." With no water and conditions totally unsuitable for farming, let alone raising fish, you'd think this would be the last place for aquaculture. But China has trucked in millions of fish, and even some marine species that have never lived here before. The first wave included 100,000 baby fish, including golden pomfrets, groupers, and mudskippers, released right into the desert. Of course, before any of those fish ever arrived, China spent years and millions of dollars creating the right conditions in special test ponds through meticulous research. That time and money paid off. The survival rate for the young fish quickly shot up to nearly 100%. Today, tens of thousands of people in the desert now make a living through fishing. Monthly incomes can reach up to $2,300, which is about $800 more than what's considered a wealthy farmer's wage in the region. Right now, the major areas where fish are being raised in Xinjiang include three salty lakes: Boston Lake, Ulangar Lake, and Seiram Lake. But how did such a wild, seemingly impossible idea, putting fish in the desert, actually work? The truth is, it all came down to a few critical conditions and some breakthrough innovations. First, the extreme temperature swings between day and night turned out to be surprisingly ideal for certain marine species. Then, Chinese engineers developed a smart environmental system that keeps the water temperature stable between 68 and 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And most importantly, they cracked the biggest problem of all: the water. You see, the northwestern edge of the Taklamakan Desert is home to huge wetlands with saline alkaline soil, known as solanchaks. The water there is salty and alkaline. Normally, this kind of water is totally unsuitable for most marine life, especially for reproduction. But Chinese researchers found a way to make it work for aquaculture. They identified and cultivated specific strains of bacteria, added them to the solanchak water, and gradually transformed its composition to more closely resemble regular seawater. In 2017, the government launched a pilot project to test the method, and as larger projects followed, they didn't just solve unemployment, they built an entirely new desert-based fishing industry. Today's fish production is light years ahead of where it was just 2 decades ago. Back then, many people in northwest China had never even tasted fish in their lives. But now, local markets are overflowing with seafood, and exports are reaching as far as Japan and Finland, 2 nations with deep ocean-going traditions. The total surface area of water bodies spread across deserts and solanchak terrain has now passed 185,000 acres, and it's expanding rapidly. In 2023 alone, this region produced 184,000 tons of aquatic products, generating $530 million in sales. And this is just the beginning. By 2025, they're expecting to hit $3 billion in seafood sales. Right now, 6 major companies are leading the charge in Xinjiang's fishing industry. In 2024, those firms collectively produced 414,000 fish, 305,000 mitten crabs, and a staggering 4.8 million shrimp. But the road to this kind of growth wasn't smooth. One prime example is the company that pioneered fish farming in Seram Lake and the long, difficult journey they faced. They launched operations back in 1998, releasing cold water fish known as Arctic grayling into the lake that same year. At first, things looked bleak. Only about 3% of the young fish survived. To solve that, Chinese scientists spent years glued to their microscopes, carefully studying the fish and their habitat down to the smallest detail. They eventually developed a specialized technique, and over the course of a decade, pushed the survival rate up to 36%. Today, that same company is China's largest exporter of cold water fish, supplying about 400 tons of premium seafood every year to both domestic and global markets. What stands out most is how Chinese firms have carved out unique niches within the aquaculture sector, focusing on very specific types of fish. For example, one farm hit record-breaking shrimp harvests in 2023 and expects to do the same with tropical groupers in 2024. Another company went through countless trial-and-error experiments before finally settling on tilapia. According to legend, this is the same fish that Jesus used to feed thousands. The tilapia venture turned out to be so profitable, the company built a 165-acre network of ponds and raised 650,000 fish in a single year. Clearly, the once barren deserts of northwest China are transforming fast, thanks to modern technology and tireless human effort. The Chinese have proven once again that even a sea of sand can be turned into a thriving body of water, with persistence and innovation. Israel's fish farms in the desert. When a European traveler visited Japan for the first time, he was blown away by the trains and said something unforgettable. You just can't help but be amazed by Japan's cutting-edge high-speed rail. It's so fast and incredibly comfortable. An older Japanese woman nearby gave him a calm, thoughtful reply. Give it 50 years and it'll just feel normal. The people living in Israel's Negev desert kibbutzim would probably react the same way if they heard about the Chinese raising fish and shrimp in the Taklamakan desert. In fact, in Israel, saying you're farming fish in the desert barely raises an eyebrow anymore. Sure, the Negev desert is much smaller than the Gobi or the Taklamakan, but it still spans over 5,000 square miles, more than half the total area of Israel. And it's not just bad for farming, it's a brutally tough place for anything to survive at all. You might wonder, why would Israel, a country that borders both the Mediterranean and the Red Sea, bother raising fish in the desert? Even more surprising is this. In 2016, Israel caught 16,000 tons of fish, and just 6% came from the Mediterranean, well less than 1% came from the Red Sea. If you count fish from inland waters like the Sea of Galilee, you can add another 2%. But even then, it only adds up to about 9 or 10%. The vast majority of Israel's fish? They come from the desert. And even more surprising, the origins of this fish in the desert phenomenon date all the way back to the 1930s. The first pilot project involved digging fish ponds in the sandy ground near the Mediterranean and stocking them with carp imported from Yugoslavia. That's when Israelis learned a crucial lesson: sand alone can't hold water. So every pond had to be sealed at the bottom with clay or other waterproof materials. That early breakthrough led to a growing network of small reservoirs across the Negev, each one about 1,000 square feet and between 5 and 10 feet deep. Each little pond might be modest, but altogether they produce about 5 to 10 tons of fish per hectare. The next phase of development in the Negev involved building larger, deeper reservoirs for fish farming. As a result, those deeper ponds can now produce between 10 and 20 tons of fish per hectare. Of course, the biggest challenge in aquaculture is water, and lots of it. Israel has drawn water from aquifers since ancient times. But modern Israelis understand that you can't keep pumping out more water than what naturally replenishes underground. If they did, they'd risk running out entirely. After careful studies, scientists concluded that the safe extraction limit isn't 600 million cubic meters per year, but no more than 360 million. So the shortfall had to be made up by desalinating seawater. Today, desalinated water accounts for more than 50% of all water used for farming and drinking in Israel. Even then, it still wasn't enough. That's when Israel turned to the next solution: recycling wastewater. Dozens of high-tech purification plants were built to clean used water and make it usable again. Thanks to this, the country now adds about 660 million cubic meters of purified water to its total supply each year. That's even more than the maximum amount they ever drew from underground aquifers. It might seem like there's nothing more to be done. With desalinated water, groundwater, and purified wastewater, Israel could already meet its current needs. But the Israeli people made a bold and practical decision. They realized the more water we have, the more we can grow, and the more fish we can raise. So they started pulling water straight from the middle of the desert. Deep beneath the Negev, between 50 and 100 feet down, there's a natural water source that stays at a constant 104 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the perfect temperature for raising fish like perch, bream, guppies, and even clownfish. Naturally, every one of these closed-loop fish farms uses specialized computer programs to monitor water quality and make sure the fish have enough oxygen and food. When the sensors detect contamination, the dirty water gets flushed out and replaced with clean water. The used water then flows into a neighboring tank where special bacteria purify it for reuse. In this way, the people of Israel have done something that sounds like a story out of the Bible. They've created an ocean more than 180 miles from the coast. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to hit the like button and share it on social media. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Take care.